Before Maegi, I was part of a band called Dreamtone and Small Rockies Neverland. We were signed with AFM at the time and released some albums and stuff. That project wasn't going anywhere. After we toured back in 2010 with John Oliva, Spain, things slowed down because the members, they got married, they had to, get on with their jobs and lives. So I had this free time that I wanted to create stuff, but I couldn't find my band to do it because they were so busy and occupied. So in 2011, I started writing stuff for Maegi. It was bits and pieces. I didn't have this complete idea of creating something new. So it was just a hobby at the time. But then in 2002, when we decided to disband the other bands, I turned this into a full-time project. So that's how Maegi started, actually. And then from there, it just became this album. And now, I don't know, I'm giving interviews and everything's going too fast. I'm not still sure if I'm doing everything right or wrong. It became, kind of happened too fast, if you ask me. Well, as I said, first of all, the other bands failed. My other bands failed because of the band members' other stuff. They did stuff that they had to do, like marriages and work and stuff. So eventually I found myself on my own trying to make music, and it was, at that time, I thought it's quite stupid to try and continue the other bands, Dreamtone and Small Rockies Neverland, rather than creating something new. So I decided that it's time for me to create Maegi. That's why I did everything on my own. It was harder than to do it as a band, both financially and time-wise. But on the other hand, everything depended on myself. So if it was a success, it was my success. And if it was a failure, it was my failure. So I wasn't dependent on other people, whether it was their fault. I'm not saying that it was my other band members' fault or anything. It was simply life catched on them, I always have to work, because I live in Turkey. In Turkey, you don't earn money from making metal music, so you have to have a full-time job and stuff. So from this perspective, every band, every stuff you do is a project, actually. But I don't see this thing as a project. I contribute my whole time, in my free time. I mean, I compose, I write, I think about new ideas, how can I improve things. But from a financial perspective, I don't carry on my life with the money I get from music, because it's nowhere near enough even to pay the rents set aside to create a living for yourself. So I have to work in a full-time job. Actually, right before this interview, I was trying to send some new stuff that I had to do for a client. You get some permissions. You go on leave and you try to be on the good side of your boss and ask for some free time for yourself, and then you go on tour. And most of the tour we had at the time was scattered throughout the year. We toured for 3 weeks, then we were home for a few months, then we toured for another 2 weeks, then we toured again for another 3 weeks, that kind of stuff. We did something like 30 or 40 gigs, I don't remember exactly, but it was scattered throughout the whole year, so it was easier to arrange than going on this full-scale tours like the big bands do. Like they book this 2-3 month tours and they go on stage every day. That we cannot do because we cannot get permission from our daytime jobs to do that. Yeah, actually it does. I mean, nowadays there's this TV show going on. You may have known, Game of Thrones, coming from a series of books. They also using that term Maegi. It's not something that I get that from there, but it was kind of a coincidence. Maegi is kind of a abbreviation, kind of a thing that I came up with from the word Magi, because my nickname when I was wandering around the internet was magician. So from that, I decided that I should create something similar for that. alias because it kind of reflects my past. It kind of tells me from where I'm coming. So from magician, it turned out to Magi, and since there are like 10 bands out there named Magi, I decided to add an E.
Oh.
Okay, Maegi.
Okay.
That's the story.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, when we were recording back in Netherlands, we had these guest artists coming and going. We were inviting several guests. I knew Hansi Kürsch from there since we first worked with him back in 2007. We became good friends. So initially, when I started working on Maegi, I first asked Hansi whether he would be interested in helping me, and he said yes. And from there, I decided to ask some more guest names that I would love to work with, because these people that I work with, they're not here because that I like their fame or something. They're here because I grew up with their music, Blind Guardian is an all-time favorite band of mine, and so is Savatage and Gravedigger. When we were on tour with John Oliva, the guitarist Jerry Outlaw, I met with him on that tour, and I saw that he's an awesome guitar player, and he's also quite a character. He's this very humble person that it's very easy to work with him. And when I asked about when I told him this project, he said, "Okay, I would love to play." And so Jerry came on board like that. And again on that tour, there were several gigs that we played with Circle to Circle. That's how I met Zach Stevens. And when I talked with him about this project, he also said okay. And after 2 years, I finally managed to pull the strings and create this project, and so he hopped in. With Tim Owens and Chris Boltendahl, I connected through internet, first of all emails, and then I sent them some demos and press kits about what I did in the past 10 years in means of music. Maegi for a lot of people is a new project, but this is my 8th album, so I kind of know my way around in the music business a little bit, and that's how the connections made. But in the end, I'm a fan of all these people, and I try to create a music that I like with people that I love.
Yeah.
So that's how I found out these people and collected them in one album. Yeah, first, the process with them goes on like this. First of all, I record some demos and send it to them. Sometimes they use the demos to record their stuff, and then I implement their recordings to the actual ones. And sometimes I finish the whole recording, like in Hansi's case, and then send him the song, track by track, and he sings on it, and then sends the track back to me, then I mix the track. It's usually like this, because you cannot invite people to my studio, because I live in Turkey, and Turkey is not in the middle of Europe. It's very harder to come here and go. It's very expensive in terms of logistics and stuff, and you cannot just invite people to your studio like Irion Lucassen does in Irion, because he lives in Netherlands. Netherlands, you can go with train in 3 hours. For here, they have to arrange their tours. I have to arrange my studio and all that stuff, so it's easier for us to work online. That's how we do things, and it's actually easier because I don't want to stress my artists. They have to record whatever they would like to record. For example, when we were recording in Neverland, Urban Reed of Ted Morose, he recorded his song in his living room.
Yeah.
Because it was best. It was suitable for him. He was comfortable there. So I want my guest artists to be comfortable. That's the first thing. Not really, because even though I love to be on stage, logistics is a nightmare when you live in Turkey. For a band living in, let's say, Germany, wandering around 10 venues is just about finding some good train routes or renting a bus. Here, I have to go for visas. I have to arrange plane tickets, hotels, rent equipment, and all that stuff, and becomes a total loss of money eventually. And it's very hard for me to arrange it. But I'm open for special cases, like from time to time I may go and play if they invite in the Pro Power Festival, or I don't know, I can open here for a band like Blind Guardian or Dream Theater, like we did in the past with Dreamtone. I'm open for that kind of gigs, but I'm not willing to turn this thing into a touring machine because it's too hard, especially when I'm also working at a daytime job. much. It depends at the time. I mean, if they have the time, if something like that happens, I would love to be on stage with these people. But Zach Stevens lives in United States, so does Jerry, and Hans lives in Germany, and it's kind of a scatter. We are scattered all around the world, so it's quite hard to arrange something like that. But if it happens in one way or another, I would never say no. I don't think anyone would say no to that. Yeah, actually, I'm using Cubase for like over 10 years now. It just became official, we got married or something like that in the last year. We can see it like that because I was already a fan of their work, their programs. And I used all kind of programs out there in this last decade. And whenever I want to record an album, I'm always return back to Cubase because it's easy and I'm so much used to it. And when I send up this project to their, A&R people, Eckert Dahl from their A&R service, he kind of liked the idea and said that they would like to hear more about what I do. And eventually they became a supporter of my work. And I think from now on we will continue to support each other because I don't think I will dislike any of their future work. So far, after my album recording, they released a new product, and I already liked it as well because I'm so used to their style, You can call me a nerd, I'm a nerd. I love to play computer games. I'm, addicted to them because, since when I was a kid, I hated TV because it was, this dumb, stupid box that tells lies. So eventually, at the age of 7 or 6, my father bought me a Commodore computer.
Commodore Amiga, yeah, one Amiga.
Yeah. And that was like in 1988 or something. And from that point on, my love with computer games just inclined more and more and more. And now I have an archive of over 2,000 games.
Wow.
And I'm continuing to buy stuff. I'm addicted to them and I love them. And I learned I learned composing from computer music soundtracks. I learned English from computer games. And a lot of things came from that stuff. So I cannot replace computer games in my life with something else. They contributed a lot of things to my character. Yeah, mostly independent games, not big studio projects, but I think I worked over 25 soundtracks or something.
Whoa.
Some of them released, some of them, I don't know what happened. With independent stuff, it's like small metal bands. They try to do something, but since they cannot find the means, sometimes they cannot be released because of financial situations. But most of them, I think they made it out there, and people were happy, I guess. I don't know. I hope they're happy. Some, yes. Usually the programmers, they send games at their alpha stages so that you can see what is going on when you compose on them, and sometimes they just send you design papers, some artworks and stuff, and you never see the game and how your music will sound on them until you actually see the game itself. But I played most of them, they were mostly mobile games, and actually one of them I recently played, it was Chester's Revenge or something like that, where you play this guy called Chester, a cook, and some guy steals something from his kitchen, and you go on revenge, trying to find the guy who stole stuff, something like that. You beat on people. It was fun. There are these independent developer forums and communities on the internet. There are lots of them, actually. It's like do you remember the metal era, 10 years ago when we had all these metal forums that people discuss stuff? It's like that, the independent programmers nowadays. I mean, you can find a lot of people over there, over Twitter and stuff. And eventually you post your CVs and your sound reels, demo reels, and some people get in touch with you, and then from there it continues. Sometimes you get on well and you try to create something cooperatively, and sometimes you don't agree on with each other's ideas and the project fails and stuff. But there is this underground community going on there, and it's a good thing. I mean, anything against big corporations in my book is a good thing.
Yeah.
No metal scene in Turkey. You know, a scene is something that you have to see as a habitat. You know, you have to have these metal bars, you have to have these metal bands, you have to have these local events. I'm not talking about big bands visiting your country. I'm talking about local bands, you know, playing for their neighborhood. You have to have magazines, websites. We don't have any of them in Turkey. You know, in 2001 there were these anti-metal movements. You know, metal is satanic, blah blah, that kind of shit happened, supported by government act. And then in 2002 we had this, you know, conservatives government came, and they, you know, stage by stage they kind of killed these kind of underground cultural things. And eventually nowadays, for example, I live in the capital, Ankara, and we don't have one single metal bar in a 6 million people city. That's ridiculous. In Rhodes Island, where there's only, I don't know, 100,000 people, they have like 3-4 metal bars, and in a 6 million people city, you will have none. That's stupid, but that's the way how things turned out in my country, and eventually it killed the scene, so there's no scene. Yes, there are some bands still trying to do some stuff, but it's mostly like a hobby, you know? Things died here, and it's sad actually. 10 years ago, we had this, you know, local acts going on bars to play, and there were 1,000 people coming. Now it's not even 100.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, it's very bad. It's very bad. I'm as a guy who grew up in this gutter, you know, from the metal scene. Since when I was a kid, I hanged around these big brothers and, you know, trying to learn stuff. I saw how things, you know, fell apart, and it really saddens me. My country is, I don't know. There's lots of bad things. Like today, there are demonstrations happening in Istanbul. People are openly revolting against their government nowadays, and the government is trying to oppress people and that stuff. So it's things are messed up here. But it's always like this in the Middle East, you know. Whenever the Western countries, especially United States and partially European Union, they fucked us in the last 40 or 50 years, so nothing has changed here. Nowadays, the government is so much oppressing people. I think eventually they will go. You know, they will disappear, and some other form of Western fuck-up will come, and some other form of fuck-up we will live. This is the fate of Middle East, and Turkey is just another part of Middle East, you know. All this conflict with Syria, the internal conflicts of Turkey, they're all Western snakes doing stuff, and eventually it hurt us, the regular people.